The Namib, it's the driest desert in the world, where scattered plants and animals eke out a living. Yet even such arid locations have to receive their rain. The rains that fell on the Naukluft Mountains in the last week of January were the first of Namibia's wet season, and they didn't disappoint, giving instead a glimpse into one of nature's miracles.
It's very beautiful, and I come here because it's unique.
That's the reason we came down here, because we know there's lots of water here.
We're also quite pleased it's rained, so we've seen a bit of greenery, which we wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Most visitors come to Sossusvlei for the sheer spectacle of the life surrounding this country's remarkable dunes. To take in the landscape and picnic beneath the area's trademark camel thorn acacias. But not many are witness to such a rare event.
It does something to people. You know, I've seen people, adults, running out with their clothes, running and playing in the water, like children.
As the former warden of Namibia's Naukluft Park, Peter Bridgeford knows this area well.
But this doesn't happen every year. It often rains, but not enough to come all the way down. It's an unusual event.
While rain in Namibia is happily received, with pans and flays of Soussevlei filling up is a momentous occasion. Unlike the destructive torrents that hit South Africa hard this summer, these floods form a vital part of the cycle of life in the desert.
Regardless of whether it's a big flood or a small flood, it's very important for everything that happens around here. It rejuvenates everything, there's new growth, there's green grass, the animals are all over the place. It's really so important for this part of the world.
One sandy plains suddenly wear a green coat, and the wildlife makes its way down to feed and play.
We've even had zebra moving right down to almost to a Soussevlei during the wet periods, which is an unusual sight.
It's the manner in which these living creatures adapt to the desert that intrigues. Soussevlei guide Cliff Cowrie explains that the Nara melon plays a crucial role in quenching the thirst of the desert's inhabitants.
The plant itself is producing the melon, as you see here. And this melon, the animals, they feed on this melon, like the springbok and the oryx, and also the ostrich. Even if you are missing in the middle of nowhere in the desert, this melon can also help you for water.
Those animals that choose to make the desert their home do so for good reason. They're equipped to survive in the brutal conditions provided by 50-degree heat.
The toktoki beetles, which are these black beetles running around the dunes. At one time, many of them could fly, but a lot in the Namib can't fly anymore. And their wings have fused, with this shell casing fused over the bodies, they can stop the evaporation from the bodies.
And then there's the oryx, the most common of the Namib's large animals.
They have a number of adaptations to survive in the extreme heat. Their droppings are very dry. So they release the droppings, they've reabsorbed all the moisture. The urine is almost like a paste. It's very thick, very little water goes through it compared to lots of other mammals.
When we crossed the Soussevlei River on our way into Dead Man's Pan, it was a bone-dry stretch of sand. Yet the nature of flooding in the desert is so dynamic that a few hours later, only a 4x4 would make it back to the other side. Many were pondering their options.
I'm a Namibian, I don't trust water. I think you must be a bit careful, and Soussevlei is a river that you don't play around with it.
This may look like a considerable amount of water, but it disappears rapidly in these conditions.
If it rains 10 millimeters, so only about 1% reaches underground. A lot of it is absorbed by plants, a lot of it evaporates in this heat.
The hub of the Sossusvlei region is the settlement of Sesrim, made up mostly of tourist accommodation. Measurements taken in the town reveal just how much water gets sucked up into the Namib air.
Sesrim is recorded as having 3.5 meters of evaporation a year. In other words, if you had 3.5 meters, that would evaporate in 1 year at Sesrim.
And that's because this is so dry, what's known as a hyper-arid desert.
Scientists say a hyper-arid desert, anything gets under 100 millimeters of rain. And we get 30 millimeters, 60 millimeters, 100 millimeters in a good year.
It's still thoroughly wet back at the usually parched Soussevlei River. And the guy driving a group of Chinese tourists in a minibus is a little concerned. He says his clients are anxious to get to Windhoek to buy diamonds before the factory closes at 5 o'clock. And his vehicle isn't likely to make it across.
Water will go in the exhaust and maybe get engine problems.
You can understand the thought of crossing a swollen river in Namibia isn't top of mind for most tourists. For those without 4x4, all that's left to do is sit and wait.
I've not seen it like this all my time, and I'm already 67 years in Namibia.